that sleepest, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Morning, morning, morning. It is I, the BJ. You're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio, where you can see the difference. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, or either us hold a doctorate degree in anything. Not that that would make any difference. Our opinion, of course. We ask that you, as an individual and or corporately, not take our statements or those that we voice from others personal. Nor do we recommend that you act on them as if they are facts, although they might very well be just that. Facts, again, our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, or repeat anything that you hear today, and that any information or opinion we present is meant for the good of the order and by no means intended to harm or threaten anyone. Although the truth at times can do that, can it?
It can. It can be a two-edged sword, they say.
Yeah, good to see you this morning, Mr. Anderson. Looking forward to today's program. We got again, great guests. We have doers, folks. Doers. Count the cost.
People are doing things.
In the words of Paul in his second letter to the Church of Corinth, we are confident, I say, and we prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord. Focus on the family, and ADF founder Dr. James Dobson traded his earthly tent for an eternal reward and is present with the Lord. He was 89 years old. Dr. Dobson founded Focus on the Family in 1977 before forming other ministries and organizations like Family Research Council, Family Policy Alliance, Dr. James Dobson Family Institute. Most near and dear to our hearts was his vision and leadership in establishing Alliance Defending Freedom. On January 31st, 1994, Dr. Dobson joined 5 other visionary leaders, Bill Bright, Marlon Maddox, Dr. James Kennedy. Loved the guy. One of my biggest regrets is I had an opportunity to go see him and did not. Larry Burkett, William Pugh, launched the Alliance Defense Fund, which eventually became Alliance Defending Freedom. This is from an article written by Christine Wagoner, CEO, President, and Chief Counsel of Alliance Defending Freedom. We've got a long way to go, folks. Would love to have met and talked with Mr. James Dobson. That would have been a great experience. I think we'd have a lot to share. I think he would have given us a lot in terms of what we're doing. And I think we could have added some things to his understanding that, he from others, I don't think he was getting. I didn't follow all his work, but I'm sorry to lose him. Sorry to lose the Rush Limbaughs of the world, even Bob Hope. Man, there's some classics that have left us. We have to fill those gaps, folks. Speaking of filling gaps, wow. Election integrity first hour. We've got a guest, Marcell Strbich, who is running for Secretary of the State. And I've met him. I love him. Go Ohio. You got a good one there, folks. You got a good one. He's not a politician, and he's very accomplished. Go, Mr. Anderson. I don't know what Martin's showing up there. Can we show what Martin's showing there? Can you read that, Mr. Anderson? Marcell?
No.
All right. We tried.
It's not. Yeah, it's not coming on. I'll show this.
Marcell Strbich for Ohio Secretary of State. www.SturbichForOhio.com. Marcell Strbich for Ohio
Secretary of State. Marcell Strbich for Ohio Secretary of State. I love it. I love it. That's a friend, Martin.
Another doer.
Yeah, Marcell will be with us in about 10 minutes. And then the second hour, we got Dr. Kirk Moore, and he put his practices and finances at risk. And to do no good, to do no harm. Wow, some of the folks that are out there, and they've given their all, folks. They have given their all. And God bless them. God bless them.
Amen.
It's just crazy. But we got to get back to the insanity. I'm sorry, back to the headlines. Or is there a difference there? Surprise. Here's what the D.C. Police Union announced about crime trends since Trump's crackdown. Trump's martial law playbook is normalizing a permanent police state. Danger, danger, warning, warning, folks.
Could be.
The hell is paved with good intentions.
Well,
good.
Corrupt people, they bring that on themselves.
Yep. We live in an amoral and unjust society, and that is people that are making it that way. Parents. Oh. State Department looks to deny visas to known terror supporters, activists planning to participate in next week's People Conference for Palestine in Michigan. We talk a lot about it, and we're going to continue to talk a lot about it. The invasion of Islam in the USA, folks. It is happening. Jewish leftists raise $1 million for Gaza. Fellow Jews are rather upset. Speaking of restaurants, Mr. Anderson, if you would, Chick-fil-A has done something very interesting in Ohio, of all places. Go ahead and throw that up there, Mr. Anderson. There you go. They are requesting that children under a certain age bring their parents with them. I know. The next thing you know, when they go to riot or they go to break into a car in New York City or Washington, D.C., you're going to require parents to be with them, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah. IVF CEO. We're crazy. We're nuts. IVF CEO says conceiving naturally is for those with genetic privilege. Inseminated without consent. Doctor using his DNA. Well, you can use your imagination there.
Oh, my.
Fertility clinics. Breakthrough. Research suggests ivermectin could treat multiple sclerosis and growing advocacy for repurposed medicines. Ghislaine Maxwell is making some headlines these days. She's saying, the president has pardon rights. You know that, right? He can pardon anyone.
That's right.
She's saying that there is no list.
And she excused Clinton. At least I saw that on the ticker this morning. Well, here's a little clip.
Trump did nothing, at least in my presence, that would be cause for concern. He was always a perfect gentleman, an elegant dancer, a gifted poet. He spoke Cantonese fluently. At one point, he threw a football 300 yards, and it somehow boomeranged back to him. I saw a grizzly bear charge him, and he delivered such a withering barb that it retreated in shame. One night, Donald performed an emergency tracheotomy on Bill Gates, saving his life. He did a chiropractic adjustment on Stephen Hawking, and Professor Hawking was able to skip all the way home. The point is, the man is a saint, and I would like to not be in prison.
That pretty much says it all, Mr. Anderson. Trump plays chess too. You know that? While the Dems play hopscotch, and the folks that know go back to their caves and sing Kumbaya and get in touch with their God feelings, leaving Trump to run the show by himself. I made this comment a long time ago. George Bush, we elected that Christian man. And then we went back to our caves and we started singing Kumbaya and left him out there all alone on the island, cheering, yay, go for it, but not supporting. And what happens? 9/11, and the acts that followed. Speaking of justice, Ed Martin announces indictment incoming on Adam Schiff. Do you think that the FBI searching former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton's, do you think them searching his house was trying to send a message somewhere? I do. And amoral and unjust nation, a Kentucky judge who was shot dead in his own chambers, that was last year, accused of involvement in sex ring. Unrestrained power, folks. Unrestrained power. Even when you elect them. But you got to elect a Republican judge, right? Yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. In the 60s and the 70s, there was a movement. I'll call it the Ms. movement. Women did not want to be noted as being strapped to their husbands or strapped to a male. They needed their independence. And I can't remember the lady's name, but she initiated the Ms. movement. And in 1978, it became official. The New York Times planted it all over the universe. I say that because I have a headline from MSNBC has become Ms. now. That's spelled MS. I think that's quite appropriate. Then you have the Cracker Barrel. We've got another female CEO here, don't we? Yeah. Sparks uproar. I'm going to make a lot of fans this morning, aren't I? Cracker Barrel CEO sparks uproar after changing the company's iconic 47-year-old logo. Folks, these are all opportunities. We're laying it out for you, some in a humorous manner, some in a sneaky manner, but it is what it is. Our problem in America is the family. And part of that family is the authority in the family.
Oh, you be a cracker.
Yeah, I'd be a cracker. I'm not going to talk anymore. I want to get to our guest. I can't wait to talk to Marcell. I met him several months ago. Really like him. Genuine, non-politician. Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson. When we come back, we'll bring on our guest, Marcell Strbich. He's running for Secretary of State, State of Ohio. And election integrity, folks. Election integrity.
Here's a different idea.
Whatever that means.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Marcell Strbich for Ohio Secretary of State. www.SturbichForOhio.com. Marcell Strbich for Ohio.
Hopefully he'll still come on the program. Marcell, I met him in June of this year, and was very impressed with him. Um, he's what you want in a politician, and that's because he's not a politician. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 2000 to 2004, earned a bachelor's degree from Indiana University in 2004. He and his wife, Nicole, live in Montgomery County and have 3 children. His upbringing, family, bingo, taught him the importance of strong family values, something that he exhibits today. Guided by his faith, Marcell and Nicole are raising their children to love God, country, and Ohio, and to uphold traditional values throughout their lives. Marcell served his country for 20 years in the Air Force as an Air Force intelligence officer, and Lieutenant Colonel Strbich served as a variety of leadership positions. He's a combat veteran, deployed 5 times during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. Why don't you bring Marcell on with us, brother? Oh, he's on. He's on. You're there already. You're quick, Marcell. Welcome to Last Call, brother.
And thank you. Been wanting to get on the show for a little while. It's good to see you again, BJ.
You as well. We had a great conversation at the restaurant, and you were at a tea party meeting. Yeah, there are still tea parties out there, folks. You're at a tea party meeting. Marcell, I could brag about you. I haven't known you that long, but man, when I see what you do and how you do it, no nonsense, directly to the point, and we need that. But let's start off with what got you to where you are today, and it had something to do with questionable elections, didn't it?
It had a lot to do with that. We as a country have always been challenged over time, and different generations always have to step up to preserve our liberty. And for me, coming of age in the 9/11 era, after that incident, of course, the attack on our country spurred my patriotism and my conviction that I cultivated growing up with my parents, first generation Americans come from Europe. And for me, it was a no-brainer to go into the armed forces and serve like many different generations before. And that was one of the most prolific experiences I ever had. And it took me everywhere through Ohio, of course, which is why my roots are now here. And I've chosen to live here and raise my family with my wife. But as 2020 came along, and as that hit, I happened to be in the belly of the beast in Washington, D.C. And I saw firsthand the overnight flipping of the script and the attempted transformation of the military away from merit into DEI. I saw the counter narratives that those who profess faith or believe in religious accommodation are considered like extremists or would be ones to have to watch, that type of thing. And that kind of cultivated in me a need to push back very hard, and really activated in me more of the political sense, the fighter. And I spent a good part of the Joe Biden administration maneuvering through what they were trying to do, which was purge as many constitutional conservatives as possible out of there who had a faith-based system. And it's no different than what was tried in 2020 with George Floyd, with police officers, right, and law enforcement. Yeah. And those two institutions are the bedrock. Besides our family, is as many know who followed natural family strong here, it is truly your law enforcement and your military that the country can always lean on. And if those start to erode, if they start to lose focus or politicize, then we really don't know where we're going to go as a country. And so I committed to myself at that time, seeing that corruptible election of 2020, that I would go back and fight for the freedoms, whether they be medical freedom, whether they be getting our elections back to a place where we could be assured that every vote counts, that it's not a question of somebody diluting our vote because of the failure of those within the system or from outside the system manipulating it. And as I got back to Ohio, BJ, I started to work as an activist within my county, Montgomery, and started to get into the issues that are present within Ohio's election systems. And there are many. And as I started to uncover that, I realized that this is a systemic problem we have with elections. And I realized that just because the Republican Party, in this case, our state, is telling us it's really good, a lot of that is laced with political rhetoric, because those in power do not want to necessarily be questioned or put into an expectation that they have to address what has been building for 25 years. And so that explains in part how I got to be an advocate at the state level. But I certainly have a story to tell in terms of how I got to this journey of running for Secretary of State.
And we'll get into that. And by the way, as a voter, I don't want to hear bad news. I don't want to hear that my vote might be wasted. So
Right.
people were telling me what I want to hear. And so I can go back to my cave and sing Kumbaya and don't worry about anything. Or I can go somewhere and drink my favorite adult beverage or sit on the couch and do that and watch football. I don't want to do it. And you could have, but you saw if you see a need that you're calling, and boy, in America, there are so many needs. You just, I mean, look, what I love about you is your mission focused and results driven attitude. That's key. That's key. You set a goal and then you work towards it. And I see you as uncompromising, which is going to run you in a lot of problems, by the way, when you get into office.
Right.
And you're going to have the same kind of problems that our current president does. You've got deep staters, if you will.
Right.
But you're the man, again, because of that results-driven leadership. You, to me, unrighteousness is like fingernails on the chalkboard. And whenever I hear it, it drives me crazy, and I gotta fix it. I cannot cover my ears enough to stop it. So talk to us about the trail that got you to where you got to.
Yeah, when I got to Montgomery County, there was an election for a Republican that won, surprisingly, on election night in 2022 in a very Democrat county. And everybody thought, okay, great. But then 20 days later, they're still counting this gentleman's votes. And as they count day in and day out, he loses the lead, and then eventually the election. And I thought to myself, what exactly is going on in our country if it takes 20 days after the fact? We're told you got all these machines, you've got all this, technology. How is it that we can't do what our prior generation did, which is count the votes on election night accurately? We knew the answers, that kind of thing. So I went to the Montgomery County director and I asked him to do an investigation, which is within his purview, and he didn't do it. And as far as that goes, I thought this is somebody who isn't shooting it straight, and I'm a straight shooter. And like you said, it's all about we are creatures, we are beings that want to go to the light. We want to tell the truth.
Amen.
We have to suppress our consciences, which a lot of people have, but not me, to avoid the truth. I want the truth to come out of it, and I'm seeking it always. And I think the generation that served in 9/11, for example, that generation has so much to offer because what we endured in war is something that most generations didn't have to go through, right? Vietnam had a long war. World War II was 4 very intense years for American service members. But when it came to Afghanistan, it was 7,290 days. I know people who deployed for 13 times. And I did 6 months, and I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week in that regard. And it was go, go, go. So 117 combat missions, and seeing people put it all on the line, seeing what they fought for. Did it in the end result in what they thought? Were those gold star parents validated for sending this nation's best, like we've always done for generations? And that is what's in me as I look at the landscape. And I say how cheap our politics has become. When people go into office, they're already campaigning for their next job. And it's both parties. And they're not coming into these roles with anything to offer. They're not studying the role that they have to undertake. They are literally building optics and rhetoric. They're spouting that off. They're getting by that. They're hopeful that people are not paying attention, like you said, BJ, that we're docile, that we're just going about our lives. And we're over inundated with information. We can't keep up with it. And so once in a generation, we get a president like Donald Trump, who happened to have been greatly impacted, and our country was thrown back and trampled on all of our sovereignty, all of our rights, right, over these 4 years. And if we anticipate turning something over to our children so that we have the bedrock of family in 20 years, we need as many people like me and many others stepping up in and putting that message out, because people can be awakened. And God works through all of us for task and purpose. So in a sense, my faith set is what is my compass, as I go forward. My conscience is intact, and I'm beholden to nobody. And I guess that makes me unique in the world of politics, because I didn't seek politics out. Politics sought me out, and people asked me to run, because the election systems that we experienced in 2020 are the same circumstances and variables are still there. And President Trump will not be here for more than 3 years.
Yes.
And what will we in Ohio accomplish
Amen.
in a state that went deep for him if we don't put forward the ideas and implement and enact them using our abilities? Otherwise, we will regret losing this generational opportunity. And that's why I'm in this race.
Yeah. You're solutions oriented, and I want to get into that. I made a note on the screen that a politician's job is to get elected and stay elected. And that is their job as a politician. Now, we're not speaking to a politician. Okay. We're speaking to somebody, like I said, is very focused on fixing an issue. And we're going to take a break here shortly. After we take the break, I want you to get into some details. As Secretary of State, the thing I love about you is you're not just a complainer. You have solutions backing up. Okay, there's a problem here. Guess what? I got some solutions for it. Other than just complaining or finding even more problems or even deeper problems or even deeper problems, or on and on and on, like Fox News and other news does. It's bad. No, it's worse. No, it's worse than that. It's worse. And folks, that's numbing. The public is numb. The key here is, number one, is to get Marcell elected. But that's not the toughest job. The toughest job is keeping him in his position and assisting him in that position. We are in a public opinion war. Voting is part of that. But getting him, as he starts threatening, in other words, when he starts doing his job as Secretary of State, there's going to be people internally and externally, and I'll talk about the news media, especially Channel 4, here in Ohio, that are just going to, everything that he does is going to be wrong. You're going to get what you got with Donald Trump. No matter what he does, it's going to be wrong. And that's an opportunity for us as the public to start growing and do our job. And the need is here. Whoa, wait, hold on a second. We want the truth here. We don't want your version of it, and we don't want you warping it. Okay, Mr. Andrews, let's take a break, and then when we come back, I want to get into the main points, the things you're going to do for me, for an Ohioan. Marcell Strbich, candidate, Secretary.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Voter integrity. We've come a long way, baby. Woo! Not a day anymore. Not in person anymore. Before you know it, AI is going to be voting for us, or maybe they already are. Marcell Strbich, candidate for Secretary of State of Ohio. What's the problem in Ohio, and what's the fix?
Yeah, well, quite a few things, right? So we have over 20 years given away our election systems to corporations and political parties to manage for us. And they've taken the liberty of taking our money and outsourcing every aspect of the election system, from registration, casting, counting, certifying, you name it. And in the process, they've just turned us, in effect, into the instruments by which we go and vote, and then we're expected to trust all components of the system are doing their job. And what I learned in 2 years is all of our problems and issues begin at the point of registration. We lack the ability to qualify someone for eligibility up front. All 88 of our counties do not have access to identity, residency, or citizenship information, meaning they don't have.
Hold on a second. When I go to vote, I show them my ID. Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, that's part of the casting process. I'm talking about something that's going on well before we even know it's going on. I'm talking about going to the very front end of election systems. The average person who goes online, who goes to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, who has somebody register them, they fill out a form. And the first problem in Ohio's process is that the County Board of Elections automatically put you on a voter roll and assign you a voter ID number before they've ever determined that the information on that form is correct. And so we operate like no other industry or entity in the private sector. We go off an honor-like system. And later, what happens is the Secretary of State and the Bureau of Motor Vehicles tried to qualify that information, but only after the fact. And inevitably, bad actors or people who are negligent in the way that they keep their records up to date ultimately submit incorrect or false information. And what this current Secretary of State in our process, which I would describe as broken in Ohio, does is it allows people whose information is invalid or mismatched to still proceed to get access to a ballot, regular ballot, and even vote no excuse mail-in ballot without a copy of a photo ID. So what most people associate elections with, BJ, is the process of going in person, checking in on a poll book with the person, and casting a ballot, usually on, and actually in all cases on an electronic vote casting machine, which, by the way, we should talk about because the president's called on ending that, as well as ending no excuse. But the point here is the system is very weak in terms of eligibility verification. The system security of those voting machines are very antiquated. They're certified to a 2005 standard. And so all of these vulnerabilities are already built in and inherent for any entity, either internal or external, to exploit Ohio's voting machines. And what I find is the worst part is there's no detect mechanism. There's no mechanism by which we can assess if somebody is conducting fraud, error, or manipulation. And so this is how current politicians are able to get by in the media by saying, well, there's no fraud in the system, so how can you prove the fraud to me? And so they've created
I can't see it.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to disprove fraud, not prove it. So they've completely changed and created a false pretext of premise that is never attainable, when in the end, no one has actually even done the work on the front end to fully qualify people.
Yep. JC has a question for you. We have a panel, and they'll pop into questions. I might even bring Martin in. That's a threat. Go ahead, JC.
Yeah. These couple examples I'll throw out there, and you tell me your thoughts on them. One, real quick, when I ran for county commissioner about 6 years ago, the Republican Party's corrupt too, because we have 4 of us running. When they did their little committee of 40 people there to vote on who's going to be their Republican nominee, they went in the back room 4 times with the little basket, because they put their names on it. The one guy running for state rep sitting beside me, 4 times they did it. And then they come back out and said, well, we're just going to nominate Bill Purcell. That guy looked at me and running for state. He said, you guys put a monkey wrench into there, because we had 4 of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was corrupt. But then after that, I helped Pastor Neil Peterson run for governor against Mike DeWine.
Right.
Tried to get him on the ballot. There's another corrupt thing. Democrat and Republican only needs 1,000 signatures. Pastor Neil needed 5,000 signatures for an independent. That's wrong.
It is
So we went out and did it. He hit all 88 counties. I helped him on. We here in Knox County, we mustered up 1,000 signatures for him. We were the top signature getter for him. It was great. But, and everybody I asked, so I stood in front of the post office, just traffic. And I was like, hey, I had clipboards and stuff and on the hood of my car, and we got signatures for him. But, you ask these people, are you registered to vote? And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I would always specify with these people. I said, listen, you got to be registered or this is not going to count. But when we got done, he had 6,800 signatures. Sent them in there to DeWine's buddy. It took them 2 months to count them. Kept blowing them off. They were Neil was calling in. Did we get them counted yet? 2 months. And then when they finally counted them, they said, oh, you was 1,800 short. How? You know what I mean? It was just all that work, all them counties trying to get something different going, but the system's so rigged. Just your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the party machinery. They're going to meet on September 5th right now, and they're going to try to tip their hand and give it to the treasurer, who's trying to be the governor, Robert Sprague. And now he didn't want to run against Vivek Ramaswamy, so he's jumped into the Secretary of State race. And so they picked their favorites. And this is what's going to hurt the Republican Party, especially after Donald Trump, who they can't follow off of tailwinds anymore on the ballots. because they're not cultivating an open and inclusive party if that's the way they're going to continue to do business by endorsing in competitive primary races. That's what they're going to do this time around in all likelihood. And it should galvanize even more Ohioans who are sick of that kind of, because what they're saying is we don't trust you and we don't respect you, the Ohio voter, enough to allow you to determine who's the best candidate to serve you. We want those who've been in the system for 20 years, who we know when we say jump, they say how high. And that's not what they get with me. And so this is why they fight us so much. Here's my plan for Ohio. I want to get back to same day in-person voting. I don't think we need 28 days of early in-person voting. Not only is it expensive, it's logistically problematic, and a lot of Board of Elections don't like it. And we have a proven track record of being able to vote in person. Now, for those who express concern about, well, what about the confined or disabled voter, the poll worker, the person who cannot be in the precinct on election night, we will have ballot excuse, mail-in ballots. We have to change our laws because the Republicans gave us no excuse absentee ballot voting. They gave us inherently risky drop boxes. They gave us mail-in ballot voting without a copy of a photo ID, which means 1 million Ohioans are casting ballots in Ohio every election. That's 20% of our registered voters without a copy of a photo ID. So you see, I have to fix what 16 years of negligent oversight of the election systems by the side that has been dominant, the Republicans, and we've got to try to move the ball on other areas. So what I think we have momentum on is President Trump publishes this Truth Social. And in it this week, he says, I want to lead a movement to end mail-in voting and insecure electronic voting machines. God bless President Trump, because not a single Republican said a thing for the president that they support so strongly on social media when he said this about this. Meaning, now they are not with the president anymore on these issues. And that's because money talks. The electronic voting system industry captured the market long ago, and they have failed to innovate. They have failed to produce the level of transparency needed to assure voters that their systems are not free, or that they are, I should say, free of error, fraud, and manipulation. And so as your Secretary of State, I would introduce, again, for primary method of ballot casting, pre-printed hand markable paper ballots. And we would save tens of millions of dollars for the taxpayer who's already crushed right now with property tax, particularly rural counties. And this week, our Secretary of State just shut down 2 counties that are rural that were pushing to do hand counting. They wanted a ballot referendum just to see if their counties would accept that approach. They just wanted to put it on the ballot. And so fearful are the Republicans of their own voters and distrusting. And so assured are they in their ability to control every aspect of it that the Secretary of State issued an advisory notice shutting it down, saying while they had a right to opt into electronic voting machines, rural counties do not have a right in law to opt out and do hand counting. So they are truly working against the people in certain instances, certain elected officials. And this is what we're going to expose in the course of this campaign. And so be it, because this is what I find most Ohioans want. They want the opportunity to reclaim their election. This is their birthright. This is their civil right. And if they lose this, they lose the one equalizer that they have in this country. No matter how rich, poor, or what faith you have the ability to make a change into those who rule you. It goes back even biblically. So we are making that choice. And I'm telling you that there's going to be something to be said as you watch this of those that enable these type of deceptive things that we have to stop. And so this is some of what I intend to do as the Secretary of State. And I believe that with the election bills I've written and the support I'll be gathering further, we'll be able to make our mark and move us in that direction.
I'm going to bring Martin on, folks. You complain about politicians every day. You have an opportunity to put somebody into office that can do what you want done. He's going to introduce an election integrity bill of rights, introduce a 1-day, 1-vote plan, protect our conservative values. History-wise, he wrote the first in-nation legislation proposing military-grade cybersecurity, serves on a national election task force to implement President Trump's executive order 14248, preserving and protecting integrity of American election. He won a high-end Supreme Court case. We can talk about that maybe. Authorized historic pieces of legislating addressing citizens' concerns over Ohio's elections. He's solutions-oriented, folks. He's solutions-oriented. He's not a politician. He doesn't want a political career. He sees the needs. He sees where he has the experience, which he does. He can get in there and make a difference for you. And then you can sit on your couch and drink your favorite adult beverage and enjoy his actions as versus watching those sporting events. Martin, come on in, brother.
Thank you, BJ. Marcell, it's great to see you, sir. I would like to ask you a question, sir, from Mr. Hambly, one of the Democrat candidate for Ohio Secretary of State. And you can find his comments and all comments of the candidates at Ballotpedia. And on here, Mr. Strbich, he writes this: voters should choose their politicians. Yet in Ohio, our politicians get to choose their voters. Ohio's rigged system from drawing political districts lets politicians decide who they will represent, gifting them safe seats and unchallenged power, and making sure Ohioans are ignored by an unresponsive government. Our communities deserve to be heard in Columbus and in D.C. Our democracy needs fair competition to hold politicians accountable and give voters a real choice. As Secretary of State, I, Mr. Hambly, will fight for fair electoral maps. It's time to take redistricting power out of the hands of politicians and place it where it belongs, with citizens. Your comments, sir.
Thanks, Martin.
He's correct on one aspect. It is both parties self-choosing their replacements and playing musical chairs, and the Democrats just did it with the entrance of Allison Russo, the minority leader from their Speaker of their House side. And she came into this race this week, which likely prompted Mr. Hambly to make that statement. But here's the thing. I asked Brian Hambly, I asked Allison Russo, and I asked Robert Sprague, come and debate me. Because out of all the people, they all talk. They're going to talk that they have this, they're going to turn power over to the people, but they didn't do the work. I've done the work. I've been in the trench. I've defended the country. All I want is to defend the nation's elections in Ohio, starting in Ohio, and to build a model here. So Mr. Hambly's point about redistricting, yes, it's true. The Democrats and the Republicans gerrymandered those states. And they're going to create a situation that will polarize basically the country in the sense long-term where there won't be any type of ability to swing districts. And what will be concerning is if we don't start to get people like myself or others, critical-minded, solutions-oriented, and start thinking for the future of this country as opposed to the next election campaign, we are not going to have a shot no matter what the districts look like. They'll be R's and D's, and they might as well call themselves the uniparty. And so what we're up against right now is we're up against needing to take back the party of the Republican Party in Ohio for freedom-loving patriots and others who have a faith system, who want to turn over a better future. And so it's going to take people who have been skilled and have something to offer in government, not just people who want to be in government, in order to make this turn. Otherwise, I don't get any confidence from the maps. The maps don't lead to liberty. That's what I'm telling you. The party will come down either Democrat or Republican. They don't care in a sense about the people and the needs and the issues in the elections. What they will do is they will frame the narrative for whatever they need to make it like they've always had it. Us versus them. And if we want to get caught in that, we're going to find we're going to have less. And that's why this is a real breakthrough election in 2026.
He who frames the question wins the debate. Tom Haviland, I think Tom and you have a little something in common, don't you, Tom?
Yeah, well, former military, obviously. And Marcell is going to be coming to our Greene County Tea Party here in the end of September to talk about election integrity to our folks. It's very important to the folks here in Greene County, Ohio. Question for you, Marcell. how bad is the money situation? Some of these people have a lot of money behind them. I know, that's the part of the problem of the system is we have all these politicians and they get all these war chests, and then it becomes impossible for ordinary citizens like yourself who are just concerned about the integrity of elections to be able to compete. What's the story?
Let me give you some optimistic news besides the agenda that we're clear on that we're going to run. I raised $200,000 in 6 weeks. Nobody thought that was going to happen. It exceeded a lot of expectations. Once you get over 100,000, then they have to take you seriously. And so I started to get calls from the party chairman and others. Oh, let's meet, let's talk. So they try to feel out, try to get a sense. Okay, can we get this guy out of the race? What does he really want? These are the type of the calculations they make, right? In the end, they're pretty certain in their ability to always crush you on money. But the good news is this: I don't need to raise $3 million like my opponent, who's been cultivating that through favors he's been cutting with people in the system for years. I can raise $1 million by the end of the year with the help of ordinary Ohioans giving $20, $10, like others that have helped me. And that is all it's going to take, because this message, as you can see it, this conviction is so strong and people are so wanting of what President Trump has said that we are running on President Trump's lane, in his lane. And it's forcing the Republicans to either accept his agenda, or we're the ones that are carrying him as the standard bearer. And that's not where they want to be politically. So we have the right support. We're going to need to raise that money. That's why I'm going to your group and other groups all over the state. I'm doing everything I can. I'm doing meet and greets and fundraisers. I'm talking to people who are not just kitchen top table, salt of the earth people like us on this call. I'm talking to people who are highly accomplished, run multi-million-dollar companies. Don't think for a moment that they don't see that this is a stale party that is failing to cultivate a bench of people, and that in the long term, they are going to be run out of office, and then their Democrats will get in simply on the basis of apathy from the voters like us. So if they decide they want to come out and they want to endorse the other candidate in this race, in the primary, unfairly, like Brian Hambly, the Democrat, said, because that's what they'll do to him. They'll run him out too. In the end, we can make a determination how we're going to react to that, because many of us find election integrity was the gateway to the suffering that brought COVID, the suffering that brought abysmal property taxes and inflation. If they did not have that election corrupted, would any of this suffering that has been meted on the people even been in place? I don't think so. And so if we don't go back and solve that point of suffering and start to turn the direction around, then guess what? We got more suffering and even more hardship coming. And we'll have deserved it because we get who we vote for.
Marcell, I know you have to get out here very quickly. Dick, if you can ask a quick question, go ahead, sir.
Well, this is a great program, Marcell. It seems to me you're going to have to get a physical endorsement from the President of the United States.
Ooh,
How does that happen? With that, you can make it. How does that happen?
I think it can happen in a number of ways. Right now, I have people who are, because I'm part of the President's National Election Task Force that is tied to the implementation of the executive order. I've had endorsements from people very close to him. Cleta Mitchell, his former general counsel, who's of significance. I think also when you raise $1 million, that's one of the first criteria for the president and the White House, that a candidate is viable. And as long as you can demonstrate your ability to raise the money, which is what my prime priority is between now and December 31st, in addition to building the army of volunteers and others that came through, like Joe Blystone had strong volunteers. We need something to be like that again. And then once the money is shown there in our reporting filing deadline, and we're 4 or 5 months from the race, we basically have the president's agenda that we're carrying. And that in and of itself starts to pick up momentum, because the others don't want to commit to that. They don't want to commit to ending insecure voting machines. They are wedded. They love voting machines. And until we get that aspect, that corruptive influence out of the elections and go back to pre-printed hand markable ballots, same day in-person voting, and get the non-citizen registration and other ineligible registration addressed, we cannot be certain that we can secure the future of Ohio or this country.
Marcell, wow. I want us all to take a deep breath. And this is BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. You can listen to Last Call Radio where you can see the difference. We've been talking to Marcell Strbich, a candidate for Secretary of State, state of Ohio, running in the Republican primary. And Marcell wants to introduce an election integrity bill of rights, introduce a 1 day, 1 vote plan, protect our conservative values. But more importantly, he wants to serve you and not politicians. That's very important. You've been asking for this. You have an incredible opportunity here in Ohio. That's why Marcell is on the program today. We're going to have to kick you off here because I know you need to get out of there fairly soon. A couple, 3 minutes. What do we need to know? How can we help you out?
Sure.
The floor is yours, sir.
Well, it's a big help to be on your show today, BJ, and I'm so grateful because I know the people on this show have been fighting for our values. Yes. And being voices of dissent when they need to. If you go to StrbichForOhio.com, as you see in the Chiron, and you can either volunteer on that site, or even if you can give a donation of any amount today, that would be greatly helpful to me, and it would continue to propel the campaign because I do have to build name ID, and it is a large state. We have 8.2 million registered voters, and so we started early. We're campaigning hard, but we also need everybody to step up and help row and push this sled. What I would say is on social media, it's very important to amplify a lot. I've been posting little short videos exposing this, talking about what I want to do. If you go to my X page at Marcell, Marcell Strbich, Strbich, or my Facebook, which is Marcell Strbich 4, spelled out Ohio, you will be able to play a big role in getting this information out. I'm asking everybody to tell 10 people about me, get 10 people to look into my background, see that I'm the real deal in terms of my competence for this. And now I hope you understand better that I'm doing this for our future. I'm doing this so that our votes are not diluted and that we can take back our country. And that starts with taking back our party, taking back our state, and fighting for the values in the institutions that were handed to us, and restoring them to with competent and people of faith and conscience in them again. So those are some of the ways you can help me. Again, StrbichForOhio.com. Thank you, BJ, for having me today. Seems like a great group, and I hope I can be back at some point, give you an update.
At any time.
Heck yeah! Heck yeah!
Nice.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Go
Thanks,
get some
man.
votes, brother. God
All
bless
right.
you. Godspeed. Thank you. Incredible. We love doers. If you see a need, that's your calling, folks. He didn't hesitate. Count the cost. Yeah. Which Dr. Kirk Moore is going to be joining us in the second hour. Again, somebody that answered the call, folks. If you see a need out there, you see a need to help Marcell, or maybe you want to help Dr. Kirk Moore, or whoever out there that is doing the right thing, and you know the difference, you know what's going on. We label this as do radio. We're not here to entertain you. That we keep our listener roles down that way. We're here for doers. We expect you to take heart to what's going on. If we're not talking about what your need is, contact us, and we'll see what we can do to help you to get to your goals. But you've got to do something, sir. You've got to do something. Volunteers for Marcell. And Dr. Moore will be telling you how we can help him. You have to know about it, yes.
Who becomes the first Muslim woman elected to Georgia's State House of Representatives, as well as the first Palestinian.
Abdel Nasser Rashid. As the first Palestinian elected to the legislature.
This time in North Texas, a Muslim is now the mayor of a Dallas suburb.
His parents, Palestinian and Iranian.
That's why I'm running in the state of California.
This guy, he's already enjoying his celebrity status. Unbelievable. He comes here, not even, 6 years into the country, and no job. The guy has absolutely never had a job. This has to be the occupation, apartheid, colonialization, and oppression that they talk about here in the West. Just know that this will destroy NYC.
Because in the United States, what we do know is that in the past election, just this last election, there have been over 800 Muslim candidates running for office.
As comparison, there's a group of people that are doing because you aren't doing, they're replacing you. It isn't just politicians that is our threat, folks. And we talk about this a lot. We bring Mr. Manasseri on and talk to him about the threat. But there are so many opportunities out there. And I started to say, stop finding a problem and then a subset of the problem, then a subset of the subset of the problem, of the subset of the subset of the subset of the problem, and on and on and on. And talk about it 24/7. A former vice president that's set in a presidential office, the damage is done. There's nothing we can undo about that, folks. Nothing. Whatever you find out. And you're not going to be able to do that anyway. Take positive moves. Do what you can, where you can. And we recommend local because that's where you can have the biggest effect. State of Ohio, we just presented a great candidate for the Secretary of State. And you have good school board candidates. And you have city council candidates. Engage them, folks. Engage them. Dick, do you have something to say before we take a break and get to the second hour?
Thank you again for showing an honest person who's trying to make a difference. I think when you show the video you just showed with Zohran Mamdani in New York, remember this gentleman is on the ballot. He can be selected. We just heard about all the cheating on the Democrats and Republicans. So imagine that a Muslim who could lead New York City could be selected because of the voter fraud that exists. And that's another reason why Marcell needs your support. We are in a world where people are selected rather than elected. And that's a problem for the republic, which depends on representation. If we don't have representation, we don't have a republic, which means we don't have a constitution. So thank you for bringing Marcell on today.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. This, again, we're not here to entertain you. Well, maybe a little bit to get your interest. But folks, you need to get out there and do something. They're screaming for good people to help. You don't have to run for office. But if you see the need, well, I'm busy. I'm too busy right now. What's the need? If you want something done, you get a busy man to do it, right? That's not a reason. That's an excuse. And we've had enough of them. Mr. Anderson, I think you got a 2-minute warning. Then we're going to get to our second hour guest, Dr. Kirk Moore. Really looking forward to talking to Dr. Moore. What a man. What a man. BJ Edwards along with Mr.
Ohio and Dallas, and here are your top stories. 40,000 Muslims packed the streets in Dearborn, Michigan for a religious Aberdeen march, raising red flags on the increasing Islamic influence in America. Many are now pointing to calls that have been made by Muslims to take down America, saying their people are willing to fight and give their lives to bring America down. The event is being described as the largest Aberdeen procession in the United States. It's a Shia religious event observed primarily by Shia Muslims and celebrates the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the grandson of their prophet Muhammad. This annual pilgrimage draws millions worldwide to Karbala in Iraq, but it's now starting to build on American soil. The event transformed a typical suburban roadway into a sea of black-clad marchers chanting religious slogans, waving flags, and carrying banners, a scene more reminiscent of the Middle East than the Midwest. The procession has sparked concerns about the preservation of the country's Judeo-Christian foundation, with concerns over Islamic takeovers in the U.S. The current Muslim population in Dearborn is about 60,000 people, representing about 55 to 60% of the total residents. In addition, the mayor of Dearborn, Abdullah Hamad, is Muslim, as well as the city council president and 5 of the 7 city council members.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Major update in the trial of Dr. Kirk Moore. I'm Carolina Hassett, and Saturday morning, the case was ordered dropped by the Attorney General, and now Moore's family is reacting. Saturday morning, Attorney General Pam Bondi ordered the U.S. Department of Justice to dismiss the charges in the case of Dr. Kirk Moore, who was facing charges of running a fraudulent COVID-19 vaccination card scheme out of the Plastic Surgery Institute of Utah during the pandemic.
Initial reaction was I was just completely stunned. Wasn't expecting it. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. I don't think I spoke for a good 2.5 minutes.
The trial came 2 years after a federal grand jury indicted him, claiming Moore and others destroyed legitimate vaccine doses, distributed fake COVID-19 vaccine cards, and administered saline shots to minors. During the trial, 2 of Moore's former co-defendants took the stand for the prosecution. One claimed that when she was hired, Moore said her job would be to give out vaccine cards without administering the vaccine. Another claimed people were urged to give donations for the vaccine cards and said she felt like what they were doing was wrong. Kathy Nestor, Moore's attorney, spoke to the public on Saturday about the decision.
The Attorney General's decision to dismiss all the charges before the trial concluded reflects what the evidence has shown all along. Our clients did not commit a crime. They honored the personal medical choices of their patients. They never received $1 in return, and no unexpired vaccines were ever destroyed.
When asked about his decisions, Moore says he went with what his gut was telling him.
Well, I just did what was right. I just did what my patients wanted. I talked to them about full informed consent. You can't have informed consent with people when you don't know what you're injecting in them.
We reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office for a comment, but did not receive a response. In Draper, Carolina Hassett, Fox 13 News, Utah.
We have as our guest in the second hour, Dr. Kirk Moore. He put his practice and finances at risk post by helping his patients with their COVID jab dilemmas. You know, the pandemic. And Pam Bondi just dropped all charges against him. Dr. Moore, welcome to the last call, sir.
BJ, thanks for having me, man.
Well, it's a pleasure. By trade, I'm an executive recruiter. I'm a headhunter. So okay. when I talk to an individual, I want to know what their curriculum is, what their background is. So you're obviously degreed. You went to medical school. You're a practicing doctor. We can go along with that. And what is your specialty, sir?
So I'm a plastic surgeon. You know, some people online will claim that I'm not a doctor and I didn't do the right thing, but you know, I have verification of all that.
That just goes to your credit as far as I'm concerned. When you accuse those accused, you're going along in your business. And I assume it's going fairly well, and then COVID taps you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction?
Well, so initially, I think I was just like anybody else. I was kind of worried about it. I don't watch the news, but I'm still hearing things. I listen to podcasts like current event podcasts when I'm operating in my operating room, and and I read kind of offline stuff. So I didn't really know what the truth was. I didn't really have a lot of time. I'm busy, and I just kind of was believing what I was seeing. So when all this stuff started happening, all the things in Italy, and I grew up in Italy, so I'm very partial to Italian culture, and it really kind of hit me hard. It was this area here was probably about an hour and a half from where I grew up, and so I was really worried and really scared. Kind of didn't know what to do about it, but I just kind of believed what it was.
Wait a minute, what was going on in Italy?
Oh, so Italy was one of the first countries to supposedly be hit by COVID, and they had a town just southeast of Milan called the little province area called just a tiny little village outside of Milan, and really close to a place called Bergamo, and they supposedly had some Chinese tourists that had come back from Wuhan, and then they reportedly got a whole bunch of people infected, and then these people kind of spread it around that whole town. The hospital was overwhelmed. Their ICUs were couldn't handle the volume of patients, and then people were dying. Same thing that we kind of heard that happened in New York State, a couple of weeks later, 6 weeks later. And but Italy was probably one of the first ones. Spain was kind of that way too. And so I was hearing all these reports, and I just didn't know. I have two young kids. I had a 15, 16-year-old daughter and a 11, 12-year-old son. And I'm raising them by myself, and I couldn't afford to get them sick, and I didn't know what was going on. So middle of March, I think it was March 16th, if that was a Tuesday, I get done with the surgery. I go home, I see something on the news again, and so I just called up my office manager and I said, hey, some of the states in the U.S. here have already shut down, 2 weeks to flatten the curve kind of thing. And I didn't really know what to make of that, and I just said, you know what, I said, Heather, let's just close the office, cancel surgeries for the time being. We're probably going to get shut down here. Our governor had already made comments that he was, kind of contemplating closing us down, and he did the following Monday. But I on that Tuesday before, I just said, you know what, I can't take the risk. So I shut my office down, and then I just sat right where I'm sitting right now. Well, it was March, so I couldn't be sitting outside, but just inside my doors right here in the kitchen, and was tapping through my laptop and doing a bunch of research. And I tell you, within 36 hours, it completely done a 180. And I realized that it was all fake, that it was all just, just fanfare. It was propaganda.
2020? Was this 2020 you're talking about, or 2020?
Yeah, this is March of 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Got
So
it.
then even then at that point, I just said, okay, well, what can I do? And so I started treating my family. I started treating, and I didn't have to treat anybody. Nobody was sick, but I gave them all medications. I had learned about hydroxychloroquine. I knew about hydroxychloroquine. I'd been on a couple of humanitarian trips to Africa. I prescribed hydroxychloroquine to everybody that was on these trips. And so I knew about it. I knew what it did. I knew what the side effects were. I was very aware of the medication. And then combining that with azithromycin, with Zithromax or azithromycin, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc, which was kind of Vladimir Zelenko's protocol that I heard about, along with other people. So I just started, sending all this out and calling my friends, family, everybody, and saying, hey, you guys need to have this in case you get sick, because it'll treat you, and you'll be fine. So that's what I did throughout the whole month of March. We got shut down, like I said, that 26th. We were being told that, there's no treatment. We were being told every country in the world was doing the same thing. And then a few months later, we start talking about nothing being able to get back to normal until we have a vaccine. So all three of those things, those are the three strikes for me. No treatment, which is just antithetical to medicine. The second one was where everybody in the world was doing the exact same thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody's saying there's no treatment, nothing to do about it. Just sit at home until you're blue in the face, show up in the hospital, then we'll treat you. We'll give you remdesivir. Remdesivir was taken off the market. The Ebola virus back, a few years ago, because it killed more people than the actual virus itself. And so it was taken off the shelves there. And then it gets repurposed. And that's the same thing that, if you read RFK's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, it's the same thing that Anthony Fauci did with AZT. A repurposed drug for AIDS. And it wasn't until they started using AZT in the United States that people were dying. And until you actually read through all that stuff, and you read through all of it that's there. And I hadn't done that. I just, I was just starting college in the early 80s, and I believed what was going on and didn't really follow up that much about it. Can't tell you how many HIV tests I had when I was in medical school and training, and everything else, to kind of like follow that whole fear propaganda narrative. But all of that stuff just kind of resurfaced for me in 2020, and I realized, again, that this whole thing was just a facade. It was all propaganda. It was all about fear.
Experience is a great teacher. Especially for somebody stubborn as I am, I always have to learn the hard way. So that would be experience. When I can remember in about that same time period that it was too easy. There's something wrong here. I sensed it. I didn't know what it was. I don't have the training you have, and I'm going, okay, I'm not going to wear a mask, but I'm going to wear gloves. Okay, so I I went to Costco, and they raised a little bit of heck with me about not wearing a mask, but I got away with that. And then after a couple weeks, I'm going, okay, well, I'm not going to wear the gloves anymore. And
Rebel.
and then
Rebel.
yeah. Well, I'm an entrepreneur by nature, so I'm stubborn and opinionated. You can probably relate a little bit to that, but it was just saying that there's something off here. This is just there's something. This is too big, too easy, and they're refusing to answer any questions. And nah, something's off here. And then I talked to a lady. I'm an activist, so I talked to a lady after a city council meeting, and her son had gotten her twin son had gotten the vaccination, and he had terrible, mental and physical responses to it, and she was in tears, and that kind of confirmed, like, well, maybe there is. I was hearing rumors, and then I saw actually what was happening. So I just gradually gravitated into that. Okay, so you shut your business down. When was this, in March, or when in 2020?
Yeah. So, well, I shut it down a few days early. I think the 16th. I think that following Monday, which was probably the 23rd or 24th, something like that. That was when our governor Herbert shut us down. Kind of, non-essential businesses. Kind of what they did across the country. Not every state did it, but a lot. And so at that point, I just had nothing to do. I didn't have to work, and I wasn't seeing patients except for, a few calls here and there. I just did nothing but just a bunch of reading. There were 4 or 5 studies that I followed that was talking about mRNA technology, and all of the animals died in it. They either died from the shot that they got, or they died from being re-exposed to whatever it is that they were trying to treat them from. They'll poo-poo those studies and say that, well, one, you can't find them anymore. They've been scrubbed. And so if the studies were kind of like debatable or not or not worth reading, why can't you find them anymore? Why have they been censored and removed? All of that was just, those are the things that I was reading about. They took hydroxychloroquine off the market. The states that had it, that were, I think France was a country that had it as an over-the-counter medication. They actually just stopped making. They reversed that over-the-counter because they needed to take it off, so that people wouldn't be able to treat themselves. that whole paradigm, that whole narrative, that whole scenario, just didn't make any sense to me. Look, I'm a doc. Okay, what is anything that we've ever done in the past that we don't treat early? When do you ever hear a surgeon that tells you, a urologist or somebody who doesn't want to catch prostate cancer early? Where do you see a general surgeon that doesn't want to catch colon cancer early, or a breast cancer case early? My analogy is, the narrative that they were telling us about, COVID is, look, don't worry about it. You'll probably get better on your own. But if you get really sick and you can't breathe and your lips are blue, you can't drive, and you're on death's doorstep, then at that point, just come into the hospital and we'll treat you. Okay. We'll put you on a ventilator, and then 90% of those people die. Well, the analogy to me was the same thing with somebody who shows up on a mammogram or on physical exam, finds a small nodule in her breast. And the doc tells her, hey, don't worry about that. When you have, it's probably going to go away. Don't, it's not a big deal. And just, forget about it. But if it ever gets to the point where it's this open, large, festering wound on your chest and your breast is about to fall off, then we'll treat you. Okay. That's the analogy that and again, that just doesn't make any sense. That's not what we do as physicians, and it never has been. And so that to me was that first flag that I told you about, was just kind of like, this just doesn't make any sense. And they needed that, though. They needed that because that's what they needed in order to, kind of like call a state of emergency and get this emergency use authorization, the EUA, out there, so that then they could launch the vaccine, because there's no treatment. They couldn't do this in normal situations if there's a treatment. So they had to undermine and denigrate and demean everybody that was treating people. Vladimir Zelenko, was canceled. All of us were canceled. I mean, I was taken off Facebook. I have the reason why my Twitter is a little bit different. It used to be Dr. Kirk Moore or Kirk Moore MD. Those are no longer available because I was canceled twice.
Amen. Been there, done that.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I lost, I don't know, half my friends on Facebook. I didn't have that many. I probably had, 450, but you know, the ones that stuck behind kind of, I found out later, were talking behind my back going, hey, what happened to Kirk? He's gone off the deep end here. Why is he talking about all this bad stuff? Why is he talking about this? Why is he posting things about, why is he posting things about treatment?
Oh yeah.
All that stuff. I mean, I was just counter to the narrative, starting in, end of March. Anyway, and that's just perpetuated. So I was willing to just stand on the sidelines, do what it was. I started back up working when they opened us back up in April. I was back to doing my normal job, still treating COVID patients. I was one of the only people that I know of that was treating people. I probably treated 800 to 1,000 patients for COVID. I was treating them over the phone, people knocking on my door, texting me, contacting me through group messages, contacting me through friends and family and everybody else. My sister-in-law has this, or my two sons are having a problem. They're sick. They're having difficulty breathing. And I just treated everybody. I treated them early. I had not one of those patients went to the hospital. Not one of them died. I was taking people out of the hospital. I took 2 patients out of the hospital. They signed out AMA, and I treated them at home with IV steroids, with hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and everything else. And both of those people are still alive today to talk about it. One guy, 3 days later, after I took him out of the hospital, who was literally had SATs in the low 80s, an oxygen saturation in the low 80s. And a lot of people might not know that, but typically your oxygen saturations are 95 or higher. When you get below 90, it's symptomatic. When you're in the low 80s and you've been there for a while, it's really symptomatic. You're struggling with breathing. And then, and this guy here, 72 hours later, was up and cleaning the kitchen while his wife was going to work. It's
Dr.
just
Moore, we're going to take a break. When we come back,
Yeah.
I want to get into when you started started treating people, whether you did that in your office. And we have some folks that have some questions for you as well. This is BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. We need the contact information, contact information, et cetera, maybe for donations, et cetera. We'll get that when we come back. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call with Dr. Kirk Moore.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And we are back. I think I threatened you, Doctor, in an email that we have people that like to ask questions. Are you still there? What happened? There you go.
I
did it. Yeah.
And I hit the wrong button.
Betty, I think Betty has a comment or question for you, Doctor.
Okay. Hi, Betty.
Hi, thank you for being on the show, Dr. Kirk. I really appreciate you because not too many doctors stand up for the truth. So
Amen.
thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
You need to get together with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny.
Oh, I know her. She's
awesome.
I have a signed book from her. I met her a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
she's my hero.
Awesome. Yes, she is.
I told her that she is the reason my kids are not vaccinated and that she saved my kids' lives.
Whoa.
Yeah, and you're a hero too because you're standing up too. So, but I do take ivermectin and fenbendazole and hydroxychloroquine. And, you have to take ivermectin with zinc because they bond together and that helps your immune system. But anyway, I don't know if you have heard that they're going to change ivermectin, the 1.87. I've been seeing a couple of reels and now I can't find them, so they probably took them down. But they want to change the percentage of it so people will buy it, but it won't be as effective. And
oh dear God.
My brother was killed with remdesivir, so I know what remdesivir does. He was killed within 24 hours. And I went to the store again this morning early. Just about got late for the show, but people are wearing masks. So is there something going on, or people are just being idiots? Excuse my language, Lord. Or are they planning another scamdemic? What is your take on that?
Good question.
Well, my take is that they were so successful with this one that they're going to continue to try to do it. You know, the HIV scare, the HIV pandemic or epidemic that they had in the early 80s was just it was the first test, I think, out of all this. You know, that was all completely fake. You know, SARS in the early 2000s was very similar. And then they've tried it, and they're trying it. They tried it with monkeypox. They tried it with, you know, trying to say that there's all these variants that are out there. Ultimately, they're gonna keep doing this, and it's their MO right now, and it's what they're trying to do. So we just have to believe, you know, in yourself. Don't trust what you hear. What's that saying? Trust but verify.
Yes.
And that I think Ronald Reagan said back in the 80s.
Yep.
You know, Ronald Reagan made a lot of really nice comments. You know, trust but verify. His wife Nancy Reagan was just say no. I think if you use both of those right now, you'll probably stay alive.
Live a long life.
You know.
Well, I know, if I was always told if you do something long enough and see that was a test run, they wanted to see how many people would do it. So once you do something, let's say for more than 30 days, what does it become? A habit. So they have now already set up the basic foundation for the next scamdemic. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, human psychology will tell you that you know, that's what the Milgram experiments were. You know, you and the Ash experiments, you know, you have an expert over your shoulder telling you to do something. You know, 2/3 of people will actually give somebody a deadly shock at the behest of a doctor standing over their shoulder for merely answering questions the wrong way. And then, you know, the Ash experiment will tell you that if you do something now that you don't really think that, you know, or if you do something at the behest of an expert, the next thing that they ask you to do, 92% of those people will do the same thing. So when they get you to wear a mask, 92% of those people will then follow through and get the shot, which is what they did in this case.
You cannot comply your way out.
Thank God we didn't have 92% of people. The numbers that are there, you cannot comply your way out of tyranny. Absolutely. But you know, that's the, you know, you just you have to be, you know, look out for yourself and take your responsibility for, you know, your own actions. And my suggestions are, you know, don't listen to what the government says. Don't listen to what anybody says. Take it into advisement, get all the information that you can, and then make your own decision.
Who do you trust, though? And Tom has a question, but who do you trust, Doc? I mean, seriously, I have a physician that I go to on a regular basis, unfortunately. Problem right there, right? Don't even get into that, okay? I've become acquainted with a pharmacy as a result of that. There seemed to be a direct relationship to a visit to a doctor and my visit to the pharmacy. Anyway, I'm at the doctor's office during the COVID issue. And first of all, my blood pressure's up because I'm wearing a mask. So I took the mask off and the blood pressure went down. So that took care of that issue. But anyway, the doctor's convincing me that I need to get a COVID vax. And I said to him, I said, well, have you had the vax? He said, yes, I just got it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you be my lab rat. Let's see how it goes with you. Okay. So anyway, who do you trust? Tom, go ahead. Major Tom Haviland, go ahead.
I just want to congratulate Dr. Moore for standing up and being a great doctor that people could go to. I'm sure you treated a lot of people that were told they either had to get the shot,
a lot of military
from their job, or get kicked out of college, those kind of things. I'm sure you had a lot of people that were in those situations that you helped out by letting them make their own decision not to take the vaccine and still be able to go to school, still be able to keep their job. And you've done also a great service to humanity because you've helped people avoid some of these terrible, serious side effects, myocarditis, nerve damage, miscarriages, turbo cancers. I've been tracking one for the last 3 years. It's these white fibrous clots that the embalmers have been finding in their corpses.
Yep. I saw that. And that movie Died Suddenly, that that they put out. Yep.
Exactly. I'm working with the embalmers, and for the last 3 years, I've done worldwide embalmer blood clot surveys. In the
I
latest,
knew I recognized your name.
Yeah, in the latest 2024 survey that I've completed in the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, the embalmers, Kirk, are seeing these white fibrous clots in an average of 27% of their corpses. Still, wow. Yeah, at the end of 2024. And last 2 months ago, I was invited to be a guest speaker at the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association's annual convention in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, by their president,
Love Franklin.
Mr. Moore.
Beautiful country.
Yeah, beautiful. But the embalmers in Tennessee are still seeing the white fibrous clots in 17% of their corpses, as well as another phenomenon, microclotting as well, at about the same percent. So you've done a great service to humanity by keeping those people from having to take the shots that we now know are very, very dangerous. So thank you.
I'm sure. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And Jim Thorpe, who does a lot better with statistics than I do, ran a statistical analysis that if I took care of 4,000 patients and kept 4,000 people from getting the shots, that by the numbers alone, I saved 8.4 people. They're just right away just saved their lives, and I saved 280 people from getting the severe adverse events, myocarditis, neurologic problems, autoimmune diseases, and so on, you name it. Margaret Aranda said, well, Dr. Thorpe, you're actually wrong on that. You have to double that number because he kept 4,000 of those shots going from other people too. So, but yes, look, for me, it was just doing the right thing. I saw these things happening. I have 2 military bases here that are close by, Camp Williams and Hill Air Force Base. And I had a lot of military personnel that came to me because they were getting kicked out. They were being forced out. I just met a guy yesterday whose son was kicked out, literally kicked out of his bureau, and he had his or out of his unit, and he had his CO standing there with a needle, and then he'd just gotten out of ROTC, and then or a piece of paper that said this. He said, "You either get the shot, or you're going to have to pay us back for the 4 years of college that we gave you. Which one are you going to take?"
Oh my God.
So the tyranny is still there. That's what's horrible. Right. And I think we're trying to mandate the flu shots on them as well.
Right.
We don't have the choice anymore.
Right. And that's, that's the thing for me is, once we let this happen to us, and if we would, then we're done. We have no more freedom or anything else. If they're able to kind of tell us that we need to take a medication, or we need to take this shot, or we need to do this in order to be, members of society and contributing members of society, or you're going to be quarantined until you do, then, we've lost any and all freedom. We have to fight for that. Okay. And that's what I was doing. Treating my patients the way they wanted to be treated, treating them the way they needed to be treated. I don't know how any doctor out there or any practitioner out there can actually unfold that piece of paper from Pfizer and Moderna that says intentionally left blank on both sides, and then inject that into their patients just with the moniker of safe and effective. They don't know what they're injecting. They never knew what they were injecting. They never knew what it was. There were no long-term studies. They ruined they gave the shot to the placebo group after 2 months because in their initial data, they ran it, and they did that on purpose. I talked earlier about Anthony Fauci. I mean, Fauci did this in Africa. He, in every study that he did, he would always take the placebo group and he would cancel them out by giving them the same shot. There's no shots that are on the market right now that have ever been studied against a placebo. It's absolutely crazy what we're doing. And the mRNA shots are just that much worse and that that much more deadly. And Michael Yeadon says that you can't think of any other way for this to have been done except to want to just call humanity. And that's where we are.
Dr. Kirk Moore, thanks, Tom. Contact information for you or donation spot. How can we help you? Listen, this wasn't easy from a financial standpoint. Start with in terms of the business, but to really end with in terms of the legal dollars that this gentleman had to spend. I mean, this, if you've ever been invited into a situation like this, you can start it off by writing your first check for $100,000. And it's depending on how
250,000.
250. I'm sorry.
That was my first check, 250,000.
I have to apologize to all the lawyers out there. So how do we help contribute to you, brother?
Well, look, the prayers and support and everything is what's got us out of this.
Okay.
We had people donate to our givesendgo.com/fight-for-more. And it's really helped us out. We've spent probably close to, if not, or slightly under $1 million just in legal defense. And it's taken a huge toll on my business. People out there that run their own business know this. When you have the federal government with unlimited resources hanging over your head, and kind of with this big cloud following you everywhere that you go, you get put on an ankle monitor and house arrest, you get thrown in jail for 34 days. It takes a lot to kind of keep things going. Plastic surgery businesses require marketing advertising dollars. That all went to my legal fund and attorneys. I sold everything that I had. I was just in the process of selling my house. If this case had gone wrong, I might still have to do that. Credit score dropped about 250 points. And it's been a huge thing. You just don't have the brain power and the bandwidth to be able to kind of concentrate on the things that you're doing when you have this stuff hanging over you. I lost 2/3 of my business volume just because I couldn't concentrate on doing things, worried about everything that was happening. Obviously it all went the right way for us. I'm a free man and I can sit out here and talk to people and everything else. And that's the best thing out of all of this. I'm still there for my kids. I'm not in jail. And my 17-year-old son can, go to finish his high school at the same place that we started. So, anyway, and being on places like this and talking about my story and trying to get people to stand up and push back and do not comply, and realize that the government does not have your best interests at heart. Only you do. So one of the best pieces of advice that I ever had from anybody was only you look out for you. And it's not to mean to be selfish, but only you have your own best interests and your family's best interests at heart. And you can't, abdicate that and turn that over to somebody else and think that they're going to do what's best for you.
Amen. That's givesendgo-fight-for-more.
Givesendgo.com and then //fight-for-more.
.com and then /.
Yeah, it's on my page here at the bottom of my underneath my name.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, yeah. I was trying to be helpful. I guess I was trying to be double helpful. That's, are you impressed so far? Hey, we're going to take a break, and then I still want to get into the chronological order of things, and then I think Martin wants to come on, and Martin has a story to tell about the vaxes. Maybe we can comment about your feelings about Donald Trump during this time period. Mr. Anderson, if you would take us to break, BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. We got doers, folks. We got doers.
You need to hear this. The destruction of the family is the destruction of the Western world.
Bummer.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Well, there's a lot of facts going around about COVID. I got a headline here. Former fact checker Glenn Kessler admits on COVID-19 lab leak theory, I got it wrong. I screwed up. That was a former Washington Post fact checker Glenn Kessler. All the quote unquote facts that were going around and the assumptives, err on the side of caution, right? How far do you take that? How much freedoms do you take away from people? And that's what this nation is about, folks. Freedoms. So you kind of paused the business, but then you started getting inquiries from people, patients and family members. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the chronology of it was I was treating people all the way through 2020. Late 2020, you start hearing about the vaccine. And the same people that I had just treated, I was just happy just counseling them, saying, hey, don't get it. You don't need it. It's not going to help you. Keep some hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin at the house. If you start feeling like you're getting the flu, then take it. But just don't take the vaccine. It's not safe. It's not going to be something that's, typically takes years, decades to get something on the market. Even in the fraudulent scenario that they currently even get them set up. But this one here, I mean, we haven't had a vaccine for cancer in 100 years. We haven't had a vaccine for AIDS in 40, and all of a sudden here in 8 or 9 months, they're going to be able to get some market for common cold virus. So it just didn't make any sense to me. I think anybody with an 8th grade science education could have told you that. All of my patients, knew that, and so they weren't planning on getting the vaccine. Spring of 2021 comes around. The Trump vaccine was not good enough to take until January 20th of 2021. And then all of a sudden it's the next best thing to sliced bread, because now it's the Biden vaccine, and then he starts mandating it. And then the mandate started happening for schools. And the first group of people that I got was kids going back to school, kids going to college. My daughter was leaving to go to college, and they were demanding that she have a vaccine along with all of her other classmates. And so all of these same people that I had treated for COVID were now coming to me saying, hey, doc, I know you were saying that not get the vaccine, but what do we do? These people are mandating it. I can't do anything about it. They're denying our exemptions. They're denying our religious, accommodations, personal exemptions, whatever. And a lot of them were even denying medical exemptions. So California, New York, Illinois, you can't get an exemption for a vaccine. And so all of that, all that was happening. And I finally just said, okay, I'm going to take a stand. I called the Utah Health Department and I asked them to sign me up as a vaccine provider so that I would have access to the vaccine and the vaccine cards. And I had patients come in and get us, and get a vaccine card. Kids that were underage with full consent of their parents, I would give them a saline shot so that they wouldn't go back to school and have all their friends go, my arm hurt, or, that needle wasn't so bad or whatever. They would say, well, I got a card. I didn't get a shot. I didn't want them to be in that situation to get bullied or to get, harassed about that. So I would give them a saline shot. And I did that for about 1.5 years. I took care of probably at least, like I said earlier, 3,000 to 4,000 people. And then in our September, October of 2022, I shut it down. It was just getting, I was doing 45 to 60 a week, and other clinics around the valley were only getting 1 to 2 patients a week. I figured that was going to raise some flags. The flag had already been waved earlier, had already been raised earlier, I guess in January. A lady went back to her HR department after telling them that she would never get the COVID shot, that she just didn't believe in it. And she showed up, with a COVID shot from my office, or COVID card from my office. And they called the FBI, or they called the Utah Health Department, and then the Utah Health Department referred it to the FBI. So that's how things got started.
So when did you get your knock on the door?
January of 2023, January 11th, I had about 10 or 11 officers show up, serve a search warrant from my phone and my office manager's phone. And the trial, it had a superseding indictment in January 2025 when they added a charge of tampering with evidence and destruction of government property, which added from the original 15 years, added a potential 20 years.
Very with the process.
Yeah. And then
they'll throw the kitchen sink at you and then come back at you. And they probably did say, well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Moore, if you just admit guilt to this, you won't have to spend the rest of your life in prison. You only have to spend maybe 5 or 10 years.
They actually never did offer me a plea.
Whoa. Okay.
I made it very, very clear to them that I was not interested in a plea at all. And unless they were going to make the charges go away, unless they, I was going to go to trial and I was going to have 12 members of the human race, convict me of not doing anything wrong and abiding by my oath. Look, the American Medical Association says in their code of ethics that's published right now that there is going to be a time where your your physician-patient relationship is going to come into conflict with the law. Your job as the physician is to do what you can to change that law so that you can then bring everything into, bring it all so that it all aligns, so that you're not breaking any laws over here, but you're not harming your patients. That's the first step. If you cannot do that, that your only recourse is to abide by your patient's wishes and to take care of them to the best of your ability, and to do what you can. And that's what I did. I don't see the AMA standing over here behind my shoulders, kind of like supporting me and saying, hey, Dr. Moore, we support you. Nice job. Glad you stood up for your patients, and I'm glad you did what was right. They're nowhere to be found. All of these agencies, all of these organizations are all completely funded, and they are dependent on the big pharma associations and the big pharma companies.
Amazing. Martin, go ahead, sir.
First off, Dr. Moore, I can't thank you enough, sir. Real quick, my brother died from a blood clot in his left basal ganglia.
Sorry.
His name is Chris, and it was about this size in his left side of his brain. He had a stroke, Dr. Moore, about 1 year, almost to the day, sir, of his first Pfizer injection. I checked his lot numbers, and currently, Dr. Moore, my brother's injections have over 101 deaths attributed to them.
To that batch.
And for the BJ Edwards viewers right now, you can go to howbad
is my batch
info. That's the second one. Thank you, Dr. Moore. howbadismybatch.com or howbad.info, INFO, to check your vaccine lot numbers, and you can find those numbers on your CDC card, and it should be a sticker or written down on the left side of your CDC vaccination card. So I personally want to thank you, Dr. Moore, because of your service to Utah and everyone that God had sent to your office. I know you received some flack saying you wasn't ethical. You should have just told them to just say no, stand up to the school, stand up to the employer. What's your comments on that, Dr. Moore? And then I would like to make a final comment and thank you, BJ, for this time.
Well, Martin, I will tell you that part of this process for me, because I'm into politics and I like it. I actually did change the laws in the state of Utah. Or I didn't change them myself. I was part of that process. I testified at committee hearings, and so now we have laws in the state of Utah that do not allow people to do that. It's a statutory fine for any company, business, school, anybody, for $100,000 statutory fine, that if you demand that people get a vaccine in order to come into your establishment or to become a student, you have to allow them to have a personal, religious, and medical exemption. You cannot do one without the other. And that, I think, is a lot of progress in medical freedom. The only issue is that people don't know about that. And that law was in place in late 2022, at least in late 2022. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it was certainly, we had a special session that kind of cut back on some of the power of the Utah Health Department in terms of instituting mandates, without any deadlines to them. And then I think the following session, I want to say in early 2022 was when that law was passed. And so, people just need to educate themselves, and they need to kind of look for those things. There's a lot of laws now across the country in various states that have medical freedom laws like that. Idaho is another one. So people just need to, people need to look out for themselves. Again, they need to take life by the horns and realize that, they have to, do it. At that time, it was exceedingly hard, and that's the reason why it put me in that situation. There was nobody that could go against these mandates, and nobody was listening to anybody. You weren't allowed to walk into a damn restaurant without, having a COVID card. You couldn't go to the grocery store without a COVID card. And I'm gonna go on for just another minute here. The only law that was broken here, okay, the only law that was broken was HIPAA violation laws. Those are federal laws. So those people, the airline industry, the restaurateurs, the gym owners, those people are the ones that violated federal law by requiring you to disclose your medical information.
Amen.
To them. Okay.
Nice.
The CDC has no lawful governmental functions. They were trying to ram down the jury's throat that I violated the lawful governmental functions of the CDC. The CDC is an advisory agency only. They don't make laws. All they can do is make recommendations to their 64 jurisdictions, the 50 states, a few bigger cities that have their own health department, some of the Indian reservations that have their health department. There's 64, jurisdictions that they send down their recommendations. They are not mandates. They're not laws. The problem that's happened over the last 30, 40, 50 years, is that when the CDC says something, these organizations just all fall in line and they all take it as if it's a mandate or an edict or a law. And, that needs to stop. Our health departments need to stop taking this stuff just as a law and instituting it and mandating it and putting it into their protocols. They need to look at it and see whether it works for their country or their state or their not country, I guess, but for their state or their city or their jurisdiction, and then apply it accordingly.
We're going to take a quick break, and then I'll bring Martin back on for that quick question. And then I have a comment. We talk about the doctrine of the lesser magistrate. On today's show, we have a doctor of the lesser magistrate. Okay? He's doing what is right under the law. B.J. Edwards along, Mr. Anderson.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Martin, I think you wanted a follow-up question. Go ahead, sir.
What I would just like to ask Dr. Moore, where do you get your strength from? And that's the final question. Thank you,
Great.
BJ. God bless you, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Martin. That brings tears to my eyes. I'm sorry. I get my strength from the morals and values that my parents instilled in me.
Go family. Go family.
My dad was he was my hero.
Wow. Folks, the importance of the family, we just underestimate it so much. We're a mess when it comes to the family, folks. 50% divorce rate, or 50% of kids are no longer living with their biological parents. We're letting public schools teach them morals, like life has no meaning, morals are relative, man not God is a major all thing, and the state's your daddy. Yeah. And look what we get. We get kids in the streets jacking cars or whatever. And what are the parents? I mean, you're seeing the result. And by the way, that's not an excuse. I came from a horrible upbringing. That's no excuse, but it's also a reason at the same time. And the heart that this doctor has, he had to have that to do what he did, folks. One of the questions that I have is, while I'm listening to Dr. Moore, is what are other doctors who didn't do what he did? What are they thinking right now? Are they ignoring the deaths that happened? Maybe. I can't say for sure, but probably, because they did what politicians wanted them to do.
Hey, BJ.
Yes, sir.
I apologize for getting emotional like that. I'm sorry.
Please do not apologize. You have a heart.
Dr. Lee Merritt read this to me on her podcast, and I just need to I need to. It's our Hippocratic oath.
Yes, sir.
And I want to read what it says. In part, with regard to healing the sick, I will devise and order for them the best diet according to my judgment and means. I will take care that they suffer no hurt or damage, nor shall any man's entreaty prevail upon me to administer poison to anyone, and neither will I counsel any man to do so. This mRNA technology is poison.
Yes, sir.
I will go so far as to say any vaccine, any injection is poison. And when we have a medical system that is set up right now where people are financially rewarded by the more poisoning that they do to their patients, we have a system that needs to be completely torn down and built back up from the ground up. We cannot financially remunerate people for poisoning our kids, for giving them toxic substances in the name of medicine and in the name of science, when we know and we have enough data out there that is showing that these products are not doing anything like what they say they're supposed to be doing. None of them are. There has never been a baby that was born with a vaccine deficiency.
Great point. Great point. And is the mRNA technology becoming the thing in terms of vaccinations now?
Yes and no. Some of it's been, taken off, but not enough. I think there's still, they're still on the market. Okay. I think the new flu shots have some mRNA technology. And I got to be honest with you, BJ, with as much lying that we're being, with the amount of lies that are being told to us, I don't know what is out there anymore. I truly think that we are just on multi levels. Our water is poisoned, our food is poisoned, our air is poisoned, our medications are poisoned, and we are just, we're pincushions, we're scientific experiments for a lot of people right now.
You're a blessing, doctor. You are a blessing. It's a great example. A great example. I was going to comment, you must be taking some extra testosterone shots. Mr. Anderson, you have something to say, and then we'll bring Betty back on.
Oh, I don't know how to address this. I have a very dear friend that needs a heart transplant, and they won't do the surgery. They won't put her on the list without taking the vaccine. It's still a requirement. And I just, my comment is, I just can't understand a doctor that would agree to something like that would go along with what they call protocol. To me, it's a crime. It's not just a sin. It's a crime against humanity, I think. And what you're standing for is truth and justice here. And why other doctors aren't standing with you, I don't get it.
Part of the system, Kevin. They're part of the system.
Well, I know that.
I took care of six. I took care of at least 6 patients that were transplant patients that ended up being able to get their transplant. I'm unfortunately not in a position to be able to help out your friend right now. I will tell you that there are not all transplant organizations are requiring the COVID shot. So maybe try a second opinion or try finding somebody or another location or something that might not require it. I'll try to do some research on that. I think I saw something recently that came across my feed on X about that. So I'll try to look that up.
Can I connect you two up on email, Doc?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Betty, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, we're getting twins in the family here, September 11th, a boy and a girl. And my son works for pharmaceutical marketing. So can you imagine the fight I am going through?
Better get that hepatitis shot. Better get that hepatitis shot.
That's what I
That's
told
those
you.
children are going to be out on the street looking to have sex. So you got to get the shot right away.
Right.
No, I just told them that maybe that boy and that girl want to have sex at the nursery the first 24 hours. So maybe you had better get it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, are you serious? So, you know, I had close to 300 shots. I was in the military too. I did 28 years in the Air Force. And, you know, I had to fight them with the anthrax, and I finally just would get it because they would say, you know, you're not going to get paid. And you trust your military. Now I realize we were just guinea pigs after all those years. I'm surprised I haven't changed color or something. I thank God that he's kept me healthy all these years, you know, after 28 years of, you know, the shot.
Betty,
shot.
Betty, I'm assuming it's your son-in-law, you said?
Now my son.
Oh, your son. So have your son go to, does he happen to be conservative or is he liberal? Do you know?
Oh, very conservative, but
okay. So have him go to Candace Owens's website. Okay. CandaceOwens.com. Sign up for her website. She has a series on there called A Shot in the Dark. Okay. It's coming from a completely, just layperson's perspective, and, no medical advice or anything at all. Just, just her perspective of looking at it. But she comes down and she very, very eloquently speaks to people that are like that. She also speaks about her own family, her two sisters, one sister who went on a delayed schedule, another sister who decided to do the normal schedule, and she who decided to not do any. Her sister that went on the regular schedule with their first son has a son now that has ADHD, I believe, or some other medical problems. Yeah. And then had a second child that they decided not to vaccinate. And their pediatrician kicked them out of the practice, okay, because they wouldn't get the vaccines on their second child. And this is what I was saying earlier. Pediatricians are reimbursed based upon the number of patients that get vaccinated and the percentage of their kids that get vaccinated. Some of these busy pediatric clinics can make $1.5 million just on vaccines alone. It is a travesty to humankind. And these doctors need to be, they took away Paul Thomas's license for doing a study that he was asked to do and presented the data showing the vaccinated versus unvaccinated in his practice. And he presented the data and they took his license away. They emergently took his license away because he showed that all of his unvaccinated patients were at least 5 to 7 times, less likely to get any of these diseases.
Oh, I agree that Candace Owens, she's awesome. My son keeps telling me, quit pushing this stuff on me. And they can't go to school, even though they're not going. She's at a STEM school. She's 5 years old. The youngest, the only one they got. I got twins coming in September. The thing is, well, they can't go to school if they don't get these vaccines. Well, I keep telling them it's a mandate.
We're going to have, folks, we're going to have to take a break. I'm sorry, we're going to have to end the program, Betty. Go ahead.
Yeah. We only got 3 minutes.
Yeah, I want to close out with the doctor's comments. I'm sorry, Tom.
So, Tom, I'd like to, if you can, I'd like to get your email or phone number.
I'll connect you two up. All right. Doc, you want to close us out today? First of all, thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you for having me on and giving me the platform to speak about it. Only you look out for you. Okay. So nobody's looking out for you. Nobody's looking out for your best interest. That's what people have to realize. We have to stop being just slaves to the state and realize that, the government is not looking out for your own best interests. So do not comply, do your own research. All of those terms that, we were denigrated and demeaned for are done there on purpose. 700 patients in the month of January were reported to VAERS as deaths, 19,000 complications. In the month of January of 2021 alone, 40,000 deaths have been reported. That's a 1% number. That means 4 million people have died in the United States, where 99% of them didn't get reported. We have 1.6 million complaints that are on VAERS right now, 1.7. Okay, you can take that number and add 2 zeros to that. Okay, so 117 million. It's crazy how many people have been injured by these vaccines.
Dr. Kirk Moore, thank you very much for what you've done, and also for investing the time today to talk with us. I love the network, and I hope part of the networking was what we accomplished today. Folks, give, send, go. Let's help this fella out. Let's help this fellow out. B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This has been your last call.
Join us next week for Last Call with B.J. Edwards.